Hello, welcome to Sattology and Debunking Mythology. And this is a Sattology show on Sunday. Those of you joining for the first time, do join us and connect with us with the different programs at the campuses and other places which are open for all. So, Sattology means science of truth or study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means science or study of fake, lie, or imagination. Today, I have a very, very special guest, and we are talking about a story, a book review, and you all know the heading also, the Girl from Kathua. Kathua was a place in Kashmir, and a lot of things happened over there. And the author is a very famous activist and professor, and also she has inspired so many people in journalism. I met her a couple of times. I think she may remember it or not, but met a couple of times. And also, she has been on this show before also once. So let us welcome Madhu Purnima Kishwar. Welcome to the show. So when I went through the book, it was amazing. Like I told you already that in a very detailed, because it is a non-fiction book. It is based on the actual case, and also people should read it. Also, The Girl from Kathua, and if you search her name, and you will see that book on Amazon and other places also, published by Gurud Publication, Sankrant Sanoji and his team. So you can check it out. She's showing the book, and it's a thick book with a lot of details in it. So one of the things which really struck me on different pages when I went through the book is that the the human rights organizations across the world, they shouted in conjunction with some Indian politicians about the human rights of Muslims in India. But that was a completely charge which was not real. So let us understand from her directly. So Madhu ji, आप बताइए पहले, you tell us that how you came to know about this case and were you inspired to write this book? You're on mute.
Thank you, Aditya ji, for inviting me to talk about my book, which I consider the most important book thus far I've written. And it's been written not just as a book, not just to show how hard I can work at blasting fake narratives, but also to present it to the court where this case is still being tried. This particular case is currently being appealed in the High Court of Haryana and Punjab at Chandigarh. And the idea is that the injustice done in the case by a very partisan and a corrupt judge who has indictments against him already by his own High Court, the gross injustice done first by the police and the political establishment of Jammu and Kashmir, then by the court in this case, better be reviewed seriously because the case is altogether fake and many altogether innocent Hindus from Jammu province, especially Kathua district of Jammu province, have been brutalized. They are still languishing in jail. So I intend to intervene on their behalf or help them get the record straight. With your permission, I'd like the admin to bring the PPT so that you can
Please go
see
ahead.
the facts. Yeah. Now, the reason I got involved in this case is because I was aware that Jammu province was on the way to becoming another Kashmir, having closely interacted with the separatists of Kashmir, first out of curiosity as to what their issues are, and then understanding them, trying to understand how they were trying to manipulate us into believing that they were the victims of state oppression, whereas what they had actually done is carried out total ethnic cleansing of Hindus from Kashmir. And yet, in typical Islamic style, they were playing the victim card. Now, the same process has been going on silently in Jammu province. And since I know the politics of J&K very closely, when this case became very high profile, uh, and this murder of this little girl from Kathua, one could see that it was being weaponized to unleash demographic invasion and fake narrative to demonize Jammu Hindus, exactly as they had done in Kashmir. Now, very briefly, the bare facts of the case. On January 10, 2018, a girl from Muslim Bakarwal family, these are sheep breeder community, living on the outskirts of this small hamlet called Rasana in Kathua district, vanished without a trace. And on January 17, 2018, her dead body was found right behind Rasana village, literally in their backyard. And this case suddenly became so stormy and one of the globally most, what shall I say, hysteria generating case. Justice for this girls became a major campaign. And the reason I became suspicious that this was a fake narrative is the following. Uh, Please come to the slide, which is about, yeah, we've already talked about this judge who's suffered divine retribution for having misjudged seriously. But please come to why I got suspicious. That slide. Now, it's well known, Aditya ji, that, please continue further. Admin, bring the, yes, next. As per law, naming and identifying a rape victims is a crime, not just in India, but in most parts of the world. Now, when, despite such a stringent law, which invites 2 year punishment, jail punishment, a 2 year jail term, I saw that topmost celebrity journalists and all manners of public intellectuals, media personalities, Bollywood stars, they all started naming her, showing her photograph, um, brazenly on not just social media platforms, but everywhere that they could find a place. Now, next. She's the only rape victim in recent decades who became globally known by her name and face. For instance, on 22nd April 2023, which is this year, I Googled justice for her name using a name, and in 42 seconds, it fetched 4 crore 35 lakh results in English language alone, not counting other languages of India as well as global languages. Now, this was very odd. This made me suspicious that something dirty was happening, some sinister forces were behind it. Next, please. Please move, yes, and move the slides fast. They widely named her, displayed her photograph in all their protest demonstrations, and well known stars actually stood with a photograph and posed with her and named her, demanding justice in her name. 1 second, don't go so fast. So I asked myself, how was this happening? And what did I find? The prime offender was the former CM, Chief Minister of J&K, Mehbooba Mufti. She named her, she started naming this girl and having her photographs displayed all over, first Kashmir media, then national and international media, when she well knows that she was acting illegally. It was her duty as the chief minister to protect the identity of the girl as per law, but she went overboard in publicizing her name and photograph. Next. Now, next, please. Now, it started, of course, with Greater Kashmir. You can see her name. It was the headline along with a photograph. Next, please. You see these Bollywood stars standing with placards, each one of them similar, identical placard saying, I'm ashamed to be an Indian, justice for this girl. She was raped, she was murdered, etc., etc., naming her with her photographs. Next, please. Now, I asked myself, who's masterminding this fury? Because these are big people. They can't be ignorant about the law. And I detail all this in section 2 of the book. Who was masterminding this massive global hysteria and fury? Next. Now, these 6 journalists, along with a few others, were the key megaphones who acted in violation of law. These are very big names in journalism in India, but they're all serial offenders. They have been playing a prime role in promoting fake narratives on a whole lot of issues, some of which I have personally investigated and blasted, including the 2002 Gujarat riots. Next. Now you can see Barkha Dutt, again, the queen bee of journalism in India, mostly spoon fed journalism, but she gets all the awards because she's in part of global networks. You can see in each one of her tweets and even her articles she wrote in the Indian media and some in the foreign media. Uh, she was most active in making the victim's name globally famous. Next, quickly, just once, yeah, Nidhi Razdan, another one, tweeting furiously for days on end. Rahul Pandita, this is a Kashmiri Hindu journalist, he too added fuel to the fire. And then Rajdeep and Sagrika Ghosh, again, serial offenders in such matters, doing the same thing. My book documents their tweets in detail. Now, BBC, which cannot claim ignorance because in England they would not get away with it, also did the same thing, published her name and a photograph brazenly. New York Times and the Washington Post did the same. Next. Wikipedia, you would think, would be more cautious because it never allows naming and photographs of any rape victims, especially if they happen to be little girls. But they too have still that entire post with a fake narrative and a photograph still alive on Wikipedia pages. So all this made me very suspicious, and it also uh, worried me that Delhi High Court took very mild action against some media houses, but it did not take any action against the offending journalists. It imposed small fines, but did nothing else. Supreme Court also woke up late, passed a pious order in December 2018 that you shouldn't be naming, you shouldn't be using photographs of rape victims, but they too took no action. And even today, as I said, as late as April 2023, I found 4 crore 35 lakh entries in English alone in her name and using a photograph. Next, please. Please listen carefully and continue fast. Admin, next. Next. So I asked myself, Adityaji, why are they taking such extraordinary interest in the case? Because this little village called Rasana is very remote and hardly anybody had heard. Even I had not heard of Rasana, and Kathua was a mere dot on the map. I had no idea what it was about, and most Delhi people had never heard of Kathua district, for instance, because it never comes into limelight. There's hardly ever been any news items from this district because it's not a crime prone area. And as you well know, media pays attention only when something dramatic, some horrible crime happens someplace, then they think that district or that place is worth notice. Now, Kathua is 530 kilometers from Delhi and Jammu is 600 kilometers. None of these star journalists had ever set foot in Kathua to probe this case. To me, that again was a telltale sign. The first thing any journalist does, if you're really serious about investigating and emoting about a case, if you feel upset about it, the first thing you do is to go there, which is exactly what I did. When I decided that I found their narrative fake, I went to Kathua on my own. Nobody asked me to do that because I'm not a paid journalist. And I was surprised to know from local people that none of these people had come from Delhi to find out or take the other side's version other than the spoon fed version they were getting. And what is interesting is that right under their nose in Delhi, 6,000 children disappear every year. But none of these journalists have ever paid any attention to them. So obviously, I became very suspicious. Why this little girl from an unknown remote district of J&K, which they have no clue about, why are they getting so horny about it? Next. So it's not as if Jammu people were keeping quiet. Um, when, for example, Mehbooba Mufti unleashed this narrative after the second charge sheet, the first charge sheet was filed um, with just one accused, a teenager called Shubham. He was arrested, tortured in police custody, and then he was forced to name seven others. He doesn't even know what he actually was made to sign on because he can't read Urdu in which the charge sheet or his confessions were written under torture. Now, any confession under police torture is never considered valid evidence in a court of law. But in this case, there is nothing but confessional statements, even though they go against the evidence on hand. So, when Mehbooba Mufti unleashed a reign of terror using the murder of this girl, alleging first that one teenager had abducted and killed her after keeping her captive for a week, and then saying it's not just her, it's seven others, which is eight other accused. When this charge sheet was filed on April 10, 2018, all of Jammu rose in revolt. The High Court Bar Association, under the leadership of B.S. Lathia, gave a call for Jammu Bandh, and all of Jammu shut down because by then hundreds of young innocent people had been arrested on charges that they were privy to the murder and the conspiracy behind it. The reign of terror was such. What are you doing? Don't run too fast. Listen to me, Admin Ji. The reign of terror was so acute that from many villages of Kathua district, including Rasana village, people left their homes and took shelter under a large banyan tree on the national highway next to a mandir and a school, where they took shelter because every night the police was raiding villages of Kathua district and arresting young people without any proof. And though there were massive protests, including, as I said, by Jammu Bar Association, and Slathia ji was not a Modi Bhakt or a BJP man, he was a Congress leader. And yet, all these people who were saying this is a fake case were treated with utter humiliation. They were called defenders of rapists and made to shut up through very illegal, high handed methods. Next. Now, see the kind of protest. Two senior former BJP ministers were forced to resign simply because they led the protest. Now, what are the protesters demanding? Aditya ji, they are only demanding a CBI probe saying this is a fake case, and a national agency should be investigating this case because the Mehbooba Mufti government has run amok and she has let loose a reign of terror, not just on those who were accused, not only were they tortured, but hundreds of others who were arbitrarily arrested. Next. Now, see the kind of large demonstrations, some which witness more than 50,000 persons in the, starting from Kathua district, coming to Jammu, center of Jammu, and simply to demand CBI probe. This is very unusual because the Hindu Samaj does not have any history of ever standing by to defend murderers or rapists. Mostly people maintain a distance, even when people have been falsely accused, because Hindu Samaj is not like, the Islamists who will defend even their terrorists and present the best of lawyers to appear for them and defend those acts because that's what their mazhab tells them is the right thing to do in the service of Islam. Next. So, when the Bar Association is demanding this probe, can you imagine the Supreme Court of India threatened them that their licenses to practice would be cancelled if they don't stop protesting and don't rejoin work. All this was very unusual because such things are not very common. Whole bar association rising in protest. It's not just political activists if they are done so, and also people cutting across political divides were rising in protest. Next, but sadly enough, um, while respectable voices from Jammu, Hindu voices from Jammu, were snubbed, humiliated, leading journalists from Delhi were projecting this notorious criminal called Talib Hussain as a hero who led this campaign. Now, this man has multiple rape cases against him, including that of by his sister in law and JNU students. He's also he's being sued by his in-laws and his wife for battering her, for throwing her out of the house after stealing all her jewelry, and blackmailing her parents into yielding more and more money to him after marriage. They had supported his education. He claimed that he would become a successful lawyer, but he never completed his law degree. And yet, this knight in shining armor of PDP, who led this campaign of Mehbooba Mufti's party, actually didn't have a law degree. He was lying about even that. And yet, the celebrity journalists globally and nationally were projecting him as a big hero. Now, all these facts, I just simply Google searched about him. Who's this man? I also went and met him. And I went to Jammu to talk to his other colleagues, all of who said that he is a history sheeter, has murder cases against him. I mean, attempt to murder cases against him. He was thrown out of the university. All these facts about those who are leading this campaign obviously made me investigate the case further, more thoroughly. Now, what do I find? Go further, please. Next. Then comes the charge sheet. That's actually the biggest telltale story. The special investigating team that was appointed by Mehbooba Mufti was headed by, again, a notorious criminal who had been actually sus- uh, uh, fired from his job, from his police job. His name is Irfan Vani. Vani. Next slide, please. Irfan Vani was accused of murdering a young Hindu boy on um, in police custody by torturing him while he had arrested him and held him in custody on fake charges. When his family came to protest, this man who headed the special investigative team appointed by Mehbooba Mufti, defying established protocol, when his family came to protest, Irfan Vani had actually forcibly kept behind his sister, who he raped in the police station for a whole week. First, he murders a young man, then, he rapes his sister for a whole week, and he was suspended. He was in jail for good 11 years, and yet he was summoned back. He was released after 11 years. Mehbooba Mufti recruits him back into the police and appoints him in charge of this very important case. And as soon as he takes charge, he even takes some of the police officers who were part of the first investigative team appointed by Mehbooba Mufti. He says they also, because they're all Hindu, all the Hindu officers or lower rank office police personnel were also made as collaborators, and they were arrested also. The special target were two people. One, special police officer Deepak Kachuria, who was roped in as a co-conspirator without any evidence whatsoever that he even ever saw the girl. And second was this retired Patwari Sanjiram, who lived in Rasana village and is a very respectable citizen because he is active doing social work for the community. And he used to be among the core team that managed a very modest Hindu temple called Baba Kalivi Devasthan. Now, when you read the chart sheet, Aditya ji, it's so outrageous. It's that which convinced me. The moment I saw the chart sheet of April 10, which had led to massive protest demonstrations all over Jammu, I knew this is all completely fake. So I went further, and the book that I have put together, since you've read it, you would know that I haven't done any sting operation to say that these are all fake cases. I have used the very documents that the police brought forth and presented in court to prove how absurd they are, what gross lies they contain, that the narrative doesn't hold together. And when your viewers see the chart sheet, see my presentation of the chart sheet, very brief glimpses into the chart sheet, they will understand that I'm not overstating my case. Next, please. Let's get to the chart sheet. Yeah, before we get to the chart sheet, let's see the geopolitical importance of Rasana village, which is near Indo-Pak border. It is a small hamlet of only 15, 16 households surrounded by forest. And this forest, on the one hand, takes you, if you enter Rasana village and go behind it, see the forest, you can walk all the way up to the border of Kashmir. You can enter Kashmir without going through the main road. So, this, since it's near the Indo Pak border, is a very favorite route for Pakistani terrorists, their drug peddlers, and all manners of saboteurs that Pakistan keeps sending into India through this porous or easy to cross border, because there are rivers, there are seasonal nalas that separate Pakistan from Jammu region, and therefore it's not difficult one bit to cross illegally for terrorists and drug peddlers and weapon or smuggling weapons to be sent to Kashmir or other provinces or other districts of Jammu province. Now, see the chart sheet. First version of the crime, when they arrest this young teenager called Shubham on January 18, they say they've cracked the case. And what is the story they offer, which is part of the first 3 pages of the chart sheet, 15-page long chart sheet? They say that this girl from this family, this Bakarwal sheep breeding family, came to this Risana village asking people whether they had seen her horses, since she had been sent by a family to graze horses. A supposedly 8-year-old girl sent to graze horses all alone in a forest. That story itself is a bit fishy, but let's say it happened. Then this teenager hears a voice and he says, "Okay, I'll come down from the terrace where he was uh, sitting." And he says, "I'll help you find the horses." And he goes around the forest for some hours. At 6:30 p.m., he tells her, "Come, let's go to my village." And she meekly follows him. They haven't found the horses. She doesn't go back to her house, which is only 5 minutes walk from this so-called temple where she's alleged to have been kept captive, or no more than 7 minutes from Rasana village. She doesn't go back to her house. She comes with him to the village, and apparently this youngster locks her up in this cow shed, where it's which is in the middle of the village, and families come and milk their cows morning and evening, also come to feed the um, farm animals twice a day at least. But nobody notices that in this dilapidated structure with the dilapidated door, which you can see here, In the middle of the Rasana village, he says, I'm going to tie you up and you lie down. So she meekly agrees. He takes the string out of her salwar, ties her feet, and takes another little rope lying around, ties up her hands, and then shoves a little handkerchief in her mouth and says, now lie down. And she meekly does that. She doesn't protest, she doesn't scream, she doesn't try to run away. In the evening, he even brings food from her, stolen food from her. That's what the charge sheet says. From his home, feeds her very lovingly. He also brings toffees for her, special toffees for her, which she consumes lovingly. And this goes on for 6 days. Every evening, he comes, feeds her. And then at night, he also takes her for a rendezvous so that she can relieve herself, do potty, do susu, and she merrily accompanies him all 6 days. And after that, she has relieved herself. He washes her private parts with his own hands from a hand pump, water drawn from a hand pump. Now, is this believable? 6 days she lies there without protesting. Now, se- on the night of the on the evening of the 6th day, he says, I'm going to drop you back to your village and to your home. So she gets up and starts walking with him. Halfway through, he decides that he must rape her. The moment he says he's going to rape her, she says, I will tell my parents this. So he gets into panic mode and takes dupatta, strangles her to death right behind his own village, just about 2 minutes walk from behind his own house, in the backyard of his own house, and takes a heavy stone, that's what the police would have us believe, and smashes her head twice, thrice over till she dies, and then abandons the body there. That's the first part of the first version of the rape and murder story, and abandons the body there. Now, all these 6 days, there was no mention of any sexual interest or assault by the teenager. Suddenly, while taking her home, he's supposed to have become horny and decided to rape her. Now, this story just doesn't hold together. And actually, this young boy was arrested only so that he could be tortured to implicate others. So, by the time they've arrested all others, 7 others, this narrative then changes to Sanji Ram, his uncle, his mother's brother, as the mastermind who roped in 7 others to abduct and kill this girl. So suddenly the story changes from page 4 onwards of the charge sheet. Now we have 8 accused, including 4 cops. Next, please. Now, this revised charge sheet is actually no less, in fact, more farcical than the first one, where the teenager held her captive with a full cooperation in a cowshed for 6 days and nights in the freezing winter of January in Kathua district. Very cold in winters, but she had no warm clothes. Anybody would have died of pneumonia if exposed to that kind of situation without any warm clothes or any bedding. In the revised charge sheet, it is said again that this girl comes looking for her horses, asks people in Rasana whether they'd seen her horses. This boy comes down, but this time he's not alone. Vishal is not alone. Not Vishal, sorry, Shubham is not alone. Another young teenager, Manu, joins him. He calls him. How he calls him, nobody knows. He doesn't have a phone. So what did he send a pigeon with a message? But so these 2 boys roam around with her in the forest, pretending to look for her horses, and at some point decide to rape her. She resists. So they shoved some intoxicating, foul smelling manars, tobacco based tablets, thick ones. You can't swallow even 1/4 of it without milk or some heavy liquid. They're so foul. The moment they shove these manars down her throat, she apparently falls unconscious. They rape her, and her unconscious body is then brought allegedly to this temple. Now, see the temple. They bring her to this temple. It's the temple, a very humble shrine to this Dogra deity. This is, Hindus, as you well know, have their village deities, their kul devatas, kul deities, their community deities. So she's special. This shrine is special to the Dogra community of the Himalayan region, Baba Kaliveer Devasthan. Now you look at that humble shrine. Next, you will see little more. Yeah, you can see that this story is even more crude than the earlier one. Next, please. So they're supposed to bring her. Next slide, quickly. And the charge is that Sanji Ram had roped in seven others to abduct this girl. And please, the previous slide, to abduct this girl and then kill her because he wanted to terrorize the Muslim Bakarwals to leave that region. The reality is the very opposite. It is the Islamists who've been terrorizing Hindus, and in this case also, this murder and alleged rape story was used to terrorize Hindus, arrest hundreds of Hindus who fled their villages. Not one single Muslim family left. In fact, Jammu province has been inundated with illegal Rohingyas, illegal Bangladeshis who've been occupying private and public lands with full state complicity. So, if anybody, it's Hindus who are fleeing. But this fake narrative was unleashed that this was a communal crime to terrorize Muslim community when the facts are the very reverse. And that's very typical of Islamists. They will hit you hard, they will terrorize you, they will rape you, they'll murder you, and then pretend to be victims. They're doing it all over the world. Next. Now, version two of the crime, these two people go, then, these two youngsters, they come and dump her after raping her in the forest, and they dump her in this humble shrine temple. Interestingly, on January 11, the girl's parents visit the shrine to ask Sanji Ram if he knows about their girl and look at her horoscope. Now, how can it be that if a shrine is open to public, including her parents, who can walk in easily, that they would try to hold a girl, Muslim girl, captive just 5 minutes away from her own home, where even her own family can walk in but doesn't notice that her body is lying there, especially considering the nature of the construction of this particular very humble shrine. Next. Apparently, yeah, they kept her unconscious by giving her an epilepsy drug of non-existent potency, 0.05 potency. Such a drug doesn't exist. And she stayed unconscious apparently for days on end, but they kept, apart from the manars, this is the drug they gave her before or after raping her. And apparently she stayed unconscious on the basis of this for days on end. Now, manars are not supposed to be, they're not like sleeping pills, they are a laxative. So, what did she do? Laxative would mean she would be defecating all over the place, but there's no mention of who cleaned that defecation, and whether anybody noticed that the shrine was smelling, that this girl was lying there, especially since the shrine doesn't even have a place to hide. I'll show you the pictures from inside. Now, apart from these two youngsters, the charge is that Shubham, the 17-year-old nephew of Sanjiram, the prime accused, phoned his first cousin who was studying in Uttar Pradesh, Meerut district. He calls this youngster, Vishal Jangotra, who was appearing in his exams there. He says, come, come, we have abducted and kept a girl captive. So if you want to satisfy your lust, please rush to Rasana. And lo and behold, this young man abandons his exams, and very next morning he comes, reaches Rasana. That's the charge. The police don't say how did he manage to reach from so far away at such breakneck speed. Did he hire a helicopter? There's no mention of what mode of transport he used, but the allegation is that he bribed his vice chancellor, his principal, and many others so that somebody else would write his exams and he could come and join in the gang rape. The story doesn't hold together, and actually this is one part of the story which was blasted very soon, and I'll tell you the reason it was blasted. Now, next is that on after raping her on January 13, these three boys together are told by Sanjiram, the main culprits allegedly, to now dispose of this girl, kill her and dispose of. So another person joins, which is Deepak Khajuria, special police officer. He also joins that day. And when they decide to go kill her in the forest, they decide again in the forest, not in the shrine, they decide to rape her. So two of them again rape her. And after raping her, there's no mention whether she was awake, unconscious. Did she wake up at least when she was being gang raped? No. She apparently remained unconscious. Then they strangle her with a dupatta, again use a big fat stone, a massive stone, to crack open her skull and kill her, and then abandon the body right behind their own village. Now, just look at the nature of this shrine. You can see it has open windows, no glass panes. Anybody passing by can see right inside this shrine. Very modest shrine. It has three doors because three small villages jointly manage this humble temple to their Kuladevata, Baba Kalivi. And on January 13, apart from daily rituals morning and evening, which villagers perform very studiously, because this is a very sacred shrine, though humble, but on January 13, it's Lodi festival, and on January 14, another important Hindu festival, namely Makar Sankranti, on which occasion special bhandaras, community meals were prepared, satsang was organized, people celebrated it together from three villages. And yet nobody noticed that this girl was lying there unconscious. There's no place to hide. And the charge is that they kept her on top of this small table. You can see it has three doors, windows that can see through windows and see through doors. And yet the charge is that she was kept hidden here. Where would a person hide in such a place? And they said she was kept on top of this table covered by some mats. Now you see the size of this table. This is the only piece of furniture in that entire shrine. 2 feet by 3 feet table, but nobody noticed her, while it is kept in full view of the public. Next. So, after Lodi, they are supposed to murder her. And as I mentioned before, her own home is no more than 5 minutes' walk from this shrine. Could she not have yelled, screamed? Did she not ever regain consciousness? Is it at all possible that she remained unconscious on the strength of a non existent epilepsy drug of non existent potency? Is it at all possible? She remained unconscious through 2 or 3 gang rapes. Is it at all possible? She didn't get up. She didn't try to run away. She didn't call for help all this while, just as in the earlier story. She happily stayed locked up in that cowshed. So here also she's supposed to have done the same. Now, all this, when I saw the ground reality, I knew the story was indeed fake. Next. Also, it came out through my own investigation and their own statements that these are not her real parents. Though they raked in, they made crores of rupees, pretending to be so grievously harmed by this girl's murder, And people, including Hindus, poured in huge contributions to help them fight this case when they really needed no help, because the government fights such cases. A murder or a rape case is an offense against the state. So the individual doesn't have to fight the case, but they raked in a lot of money. Now, they are not her real parents, that came out very fast. They then admitted, even in an interview to me, I tracked this family up in the hills. Um, they admitted in an interview to me that she was adopted. But adopted from whom? Apparently, the father's sister. But the real mother, the biological mother, never showed up. But two other fake fathers showed up. And since no DNA test was ever done to establish whether she was really their daughter or they had just picked her up from somewhere, and nobody from this village, Rasana village, knew about her existence. They came to know of her existence only after her death. So it's quite possible that she wasn't even a relative. Um, they admitted to her being an adopted daughter, but it's likely that she wasn't even a relative. They were only using her as a domestic servant for grazing sheep, for doing other household chores. All this came out. And her fake brother admitted to me that the photograph that became iconic and was circulated globally was actually the one and only photograph taken of this girl 1.5 days before she disappeared. And I asked the family, this is me interviewing the family, why is it that there are no other photographs? Do they have any other? They said, no, no, there's only one photograph. When did they take it? The mother admitted it was taken just a day and a half before, on 8th of January. And that's the photograph that went viral globally against law. Now, when I said, why are there no other photographs? I was told, oh, among Muslims, we don't ever photograph girls and women. So the very fact that only one photograph of her existed, which was made to go viral, shows that this was really pre planned, and which is why from day one, all those who led this Justice for This Girl campaign made sure that that innocent face, um, was broadcast widely, and it became the most recognizable face of victimhood, or fake victimhood, though, of the Muslim community. Next, please. So I'm saying even this was well planned, this photograph taking. Also, other suspicious aspects of the conduct of victims' self proclaimed families. Their statements to the police and courts are full of lies, which is what I presented in the book. I've established their lies through their own statements, not by doing any sting operation. Another suspicious part of this, in the conduct of this family, is that after she disappeared on January 10, they kept quiet, completely silent, till her dead body appeared. They didn't seem to be bothered about it. Even the first information report to the police was filed a day and a half or 2 days later. They didn't go on the very first day to the police when she didn't return home. In fact, the father says, I thought she must be lying injured somewhere in the forest, so I thought maybe we'll look for her tomorrow. Nobody does that if their little daughter has been injured in the forest, hasn't returned home, the horses have come back, but the girl doesn't come back. But they kept quiet merrily. And even the lookout notice, please bring that slide. Even the lookout notice for this girl, published in the newspapers of Kathua district, local newspapers, appeared a day after her dead body was found. So, why were they quiet all this while? They didn't protest that the police didn't help them, kept totally silent that there was no action in recovering the girl. But the moment her dead body is found, within hours, next please. Yeah. So many other lies in the victim's parents' narrative, the fake parents of the girls. Next. I don't have time to bring everything. I've already explained there was indifference the day she disappeared, and week-long silence after she remained untraced for 6 days, with her body appearing on 17th. The moment her dead body shows up, then you see ferocious action. Please, next.
People can read your book to get the full details also.
Yes, exactly. Now, her dead body is taken out from the ambulance after the postmortem. They put it in the middle of the highway and hold traffic on the national highway for a very long time. And suddenly it's all about, oh, BJP has done it, Modi has done this, Modi's party has done that, Hindutva activists have done that, Hindutva fascists have done that, naming especially Sanji Ram and Deepak Kajoria as though her dead body carried imprints of their names. How did they know? How did Talib Hussain, the history sheeter who led this campaign, how did he know that these two were the culprits? The police had not even released the post-mortem report before they said she'd been raped by such and such Hindus and murdered by them. Next. Yeah, you see these belated protests, total quiet for 6, 7 days. Next. Very quickly. Yeah. The most revealing part of this whole story or my expose is that the postmortem reports and forensic lab tests don't support rape charges. Look at the postmortem reports, which I have reproduced in the book. First thing, very boldly written, I've marked in red, no sperm detected on either the girl's body or on her clothes. If there is no sperm, obviously it means she was not raped, there was no sex, leave alone gang rape. The PMRs, the postmortem reports, make no mention of injuries to her private parts or her internal organs. And it is impossible that if a small girl, they said she was 8 years old, but she's likely to have been 10, 12, or maybe even 13, because there's so many lies they tell about even their own ages. It's quite likely that they lied even about her age. Anyway, whether she was 8, 10, 12, or 13, there's no internal injury to her organs. Um, and is it at all possible, you tell me, that a small girl survived gang rapes without any internal injury and without any sperm on her body or on her clothes? Next. Also, the nature of injuries that they alleged don't match the nature of injuries that were actually found on her body. There's no doubt that she was tortured to death. She was murdered, but I say it loud and clear. It's her own people who have murdered her. And if you really want to know the truth, why and who actually did it, you'll have to start investigating Mehbooba Mufti, because she was masterminding this whole narrative and this whole anti Hindu hate campaign. Now, look at the next one. Yeah, next slide. They alleged that the girl had been electrocuted. Yeah, this, of course, there are many contradictions in the two postmortem reports, but none of them support the rape charge or the injuries that were alleged. Next, please. Next. Next. Yeah. They alleged electrocution and human bites all over her body. Talib Hussain started talking about it the moment her dead body was recovered, that she'd been electrocuted and there were human bites over her dead body. Her fake father also said that. The postmortem report does not support these charges. They allege she was strangulated, her head hit twice with a heavy stone. The postmortem report says skull intact, no bone fracture or bleeding, strangulation marks also not visible anywhere on her neck. It's impossible if you strangle somebody to death that there are no telltale signs on the neck that come out in the postmortem report. Then that she was kept drugged through 6 days. As I mentioned before, the epilepsy drug allegedly used to render her unconscious doesn't exist in that potency and cannot render unconscious even for half a day. Alleged multiple gang rapes, no injury to internal organs. Charge of rape is not supported in the PMRs or in the forensic lab report, including the second one that they did, the forensic lab that they sent to in Kashmir. They didn't just rely on the Jammu. And in fact, the column for head in the post mortem report says scalp, no external or internal injury seen, bones intact, base of skull also unharmed. How can this be? Not a drop of blood, not a hairline fracture, if the girl has been hit with a heavy stone twice over, but she shows no sign of any, even nominal injuries to her skull. Next. Now, Vishal Jangotra, Sanji Ram's son, who's alleged to have come all the way from Meerut, Muzaffarnagar to participate in the gang rape, had to be freed even though the judge was highly biased and gave a totally callous and um, um, outrageous judgment. Even he had to free him. Why? Because for the very on same day that they alleged he had come to his village to gang rape her, to participate in the gang rape, there is CCTV footage of two ATMs of two different banks where he went to withdraw modest amounts of money from his sister's account because he didn't even have 500 rupees in hand. But he's supposed to have bribed his vice chancellor, principal, and many others so that they would appear, someone else would appear in the exams for him. So, in order for him to rush to the village to gang rape. But the CCTV footage shows him on two different days in Muzaffarnagar near Meerut, withdrawing money, failing one day, second day, he manages to take out 1,000 rupees that his sister deposited in her account for him. There were any number of other supportive evidence. He had train tickets for the day he left for Muzaffarnagar. His landlady had photographs of him being in her house during those days, especially celebrating Lodi in her house, and many other Facebook posts that these boys posted of their presence in Muzaffarnagar on those days. He appeared in the exam. The principal of his college testified that he had showed up for the exam. Nobody else wrote the exam for him. And many other call records of his presence in Muzaffarnagar. None of this was taken into account by the judge, except the fact, the only thing that saved him is that a national TV channel managed to get hold of the CCTV footage of those two ATMs and ran it in their prime time program. The judge could not ignore that evidence that he was in Muzaffarnagar. His presence is noted in those two ATMs. Though the police stole the the CCTV footage of his exam hall, even there was CCTV footage. The police actually stole all those records, including his exam papers, and never presented them before the judge. So this was a totally fake case. Now, as you well know, in criminal cases, the accused has to be found guilty beyond reasonable doubt. You have to have strong evidence. In this case, there is no evidence. If anything, every evidence that exists blasts the charges that the police had leveled against these 8 innocent men and for incarcerating hundreds of others. So, this young man, when he gets, has to be released, actually, any sensible, honest judge would have ordered a reinvestigation saying if the police could lie so brazenly in the case of Vishal Jangotra, make him a prime accused in gang rape and murder, then clearly they could be lying in the cases of all seven others. Their participation in this crime also becomes doubtful. But the judge didn't do that. He, in fact, gave life imprisonment to two main accused, Sanjiram and Deepak Khajuria, though there's not a shred of evidence that they had anything to do with this girl. They didn't even know of her existence till her dead body was found. And different 5 year, 7 year terms for those who were accused of collaborating in the crime, of which they knew nothing about. So now this judgment has been appealed to by all the accused in the High Court of Haryana and Punjab. But the case has been mishandled by lawyers, and we hope that with all the evidence that I have presented, which we hope will also reach the High Court. That is the reason I wrote this book in such great detail. It's actually not just for reading of human rights activists, lawyers, journalists, or all those who want to understand how to blast fake narratives unleashed against Hindu community repeatedly, but also so that in court we can help the family get honorable acquittal. All this eight accused get honorable acquittal, and the actual culprits taken into custody, put on trial, and given due punishment. And as I mentioned earlier, if we really want to get at the real killers, the case should be handed over to the NIA, National Investigative Agency, because it has very serious national security implications. This entire fake narrative has been crafted with a view to forcing Hindus out of Kathua province, Kathua district, because it is one of the few Hindu majority districts left in Jammu province. All of Jammu used to be Hindu majority till a few decades ago. But now most of the districts, Rajouri, Punch, Doda, Ramban, Kishtwar, have all become Muslim majority, where Hindus are being expelled through such game plans. But they've been going on silently for decades and nobody took notice. In this case, they made so much brouhaha about it that some of us had to take notice, were forced to take notice. And since Kathua district is one of the few remaining Hindu majority districts, the entire drama has been enacted in order to drive out Hindus from this district. And indeed, Aditya ji, lot of Hindu families have moved out. Young people from Kathua district have been sent out by their parents because they don't feel safe anymore, especially since it borders Pakistan, and Pakistan funded backed terrorists are forever in curse, in entering this district, and there have been several attacks even on army bases in this region, because the most army bases, air force bases, are surrounded by illegal encroachers from the Rohingya and Bangladeshi communities. Various Kashmir parties and their governments of J&K, which are always Islamic in orientation because it's a Muslim majority state. They have enabled illegal migrants from Bangladesh, Rohingyas, to come and flood uh, Jammu province, take over forest land, take over personal lands, and passed laws which says they will not be removed. Even if courts pass a verdict in favor of those whose lands have been illegally encroached, they will not be removed. So this was actually part of this game plan to put the Hindu community on the defensive, which had been protesting against these illegal encroachments on their lands, and people actually harming their crops, Bakarwal communities, community members their sheep and their buffaloes on the farms of Hindu farmers in order to drive them out through terror and outright, tyranny, outright tyranny, with police invariably coming to the defense of Muslim aggressors. That's really the story. And I hope this book will help put the record straight. Thank you.
I want to share one to the audience, the statistics by the country, because a lot of time in the US, a lot of Christianism and Islamism followers and other groups, vested interests backed by the American intelligence agencies and Western intelligence agencies, their whole goal is to show India in a bad light. And I want to check out the rape statistics by 2023 is the latest one, and you can see the United States is one of the worst violators of violence against women, and you can see it is almost like 38.2 per 100,000 women, and 95% of such cases are never reported in the media in the United States. I'm not talking about any other country. Other countries are way higher, some of the other countries, but there are a lot of other issues which are mostly related to, again, involvement by the Western agencies. Now, coming to the next statistic, I'll see where the India stands. India stands at a much lower rate, and most of the Islamic groups, like if you talk to the group, various groups in USA, and many of them, they come and campaign for it also, and you'll see that one of the lowest rates are India at
Yeah.
94th, which is 2.63 per 100,000 people, despite the population being four times the size of United States. I'm not comparing with any other country, just United States and India. So, which is a very fake statistics, fake narrative being peddled in the American campuses, as well as in American academics, plus agencies like which are I think it's a defunct agencies, like USCIRF and other agencies which regularly state fake statistics on single individual cases. Now, if I go to the example of Sweden and other countries,
Mm.
Sweden has a one of the highest immigration recent years, and it is one of the top countries in the Europe where 98% of rape cases are never investigated. And somehow I will give to the credit of Islamism oriented campaigns, including the campaign of Islamophobia, that they are just waging a fake campaign, especially against India, because they see India as a growing economic threat. People think that it is Pakistan or something, and you named Mahbuba Mufti, and since 2019 things have changed. But I want to ask you this question: that this case is the way the facts you have presented. Do you think that after 2019 the things became better over there since Kashmir became a union territory of India?
We had hoped that would happen, but it actually has not happened. In fact, it's very worrisome that Modi government is inviting huge investments from the Middle East. And Kashmiris are delighted about it because they think that this will become actually another replica of Kuwait or Dubai, or, well, Dubai is at least a liberal place, but other more repressive places where Islam rules through sheer brute force. Well, they're used to that. They think that's normal. That's their rightful due. No, it hasn't, because this case, it's not just that while Mehbooba Mufti was chief minister, it went against Hindus. It was used to demonize Hindus on false charges, terrorize them. But now, when the eight accused have gone to High Court to challenge their conviction, the father of the fake father of this girl, the dead girl, has filed a petition saying they all deserve death sentence. It's not enough that they get life sentence till their last breath, death sentence. And the government has supported it, which is to say the governor. Now, it's ruled by the governor, who's a central government appointee. They are not helping one bit in exposing the fakeness of this case. Number one, Roshni Act, which was an instrument of illegal takeover of public lands, private lands by Islamists. The High Court declared it a big crime, a conspiracy, and wanted it completely trashed. But despite High Court having said that such a lawless law can't exist, the BJP government has appealed, saying, no, no, we can't really uh, throw it in the garbage because it will affect many poor communities, which means they don't want to touch the illegal encroachers, whether Bangladeshis or Rohingyas or coming from other provinces. Also, do you ever see the central government take note of Jammu and its grievances? No, it's all about Kashmir. Do you ever see them even take note of the genuine, legitimate issues that Jammu province raises with regard to development inequities, budgetary allocations, jobs? Majority of jobs are still going to Kashmiris. Jammu people don't get their due share in government jobs, scholarships, everything. It's still as screwed as it is. And in fact, after this case, the manner in which the central government cracked down on those who demanded a CBI probe, they were forced to resign, they were hounded, they've been demonized. Uh, Jammu is very demoralized as a result. So I don't see any change. There are no investments going to Jammu. You only hear of all the grand plans that the central government has for the valley. So they're wooing them um, on bended knees. I don't know if it's going to yield results because this has been done for decades already with no results, except that there's been ethnic cleansing. And now that ethnic cleansing is taking place rapidly in Jammu province, do you see any recognition of it or attempts to stop it? No. The BJP had promised that Pandits would be taken back or sent back, enabled to go back and reclaim their homes. Kashmiri Hindus who had been forced out. No, not one bit. In fact, the 1,500 or 2,000 odd Hindus that were given lowly jobs by the UPA regime in Kashmir as way of a resettlement package have been targeted with terrorist killings, have been victims of terrorist killings, and they actually abandoned those jobs and said, we can't stay there because these lowly jobs at the cost of our lives are not worth it. So instead of giving protection to a larger number of Muslims, we were told Sanic colonies would be created to off balance the domination by jihadis in the valley. None of that has happened. So I don't see many changes. If anything, the narrative has become even more tilted in their favor. And it's as though we prove our democratic credentials only by bending ourselves backward to say, anything you do will be accepted because your verdict and your certification matters. But they refuse to give this certification that the Modi government is demanding of them. That's really sad. I wish there was a way to placate them. But Islamists get placated only with one thing, no matter how many special benefits you offer them. Even if you weigh each of them with gold, they're not going to be placated. Their agenda is very simple: total Islamization of not just J&K, but the rest of India. They have actually announced openly, it's part of their stated agenda, Pakistani agenda, as well as the agenda of Muslim organizations in India, that by 2047, all of India will be fully Islamized. That's their open statement. Now, they are ready for even civil war in order to execute it. They are forcing Hindus out of all those regions where they've come to acquire a certain majority, whether in Bengal, certain districts where Hindus have fled their homes, Assam, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, wherever, even in Delhi. You think any of us dare go into the mini Pakistans, the many mini Pakistans that exist in the heart of Delhi? Even the police does not dare enter. There's so many mini Pakistans all over India, including in the heart of Delhi, the capital of India. So we are allowing demographic invasion, very systematic, well planned demographic invasion. And in this, you're right, Aditya ji, I agree. America is fully behind it. Just as
No,
Taliban,
American
ISIS are the actual godfathers
no,
of these terrorist organizations.
Pakistan
So,
is the Pakistan is a captive state of the American agencies.
absolutely, you said it.
Pakistan's country as a country, its economy, for the viewers, I can tell you, smaller than the economy of municipal corporation of Greater Mumbai.
That's
and
right.
it's a smaller economy, and the entire all these operations, if you look at Palestine Israel issue, that is also American agencies.
Yeah,
Ukraine is American agencies. Korean war was American agencies. Vietnam was American agencies. Everywhere, whenever they see a rising economic power, these Islamism followers are used to create disturbance everywhere, and including in Islamic countries also. And somehow
true.
the Indian agencies have to take note of that, and somehow sending a strong message, because there's one famous politician in USA has said, the enemy of being an enemy of USA is bad, but being a friend is fatal. And it has happened
Absolutely.
again and again, again and again.
Yeah.
One more question I have for you.
See, the other thing I would say, one sentence I'd like to add to what you've said. It's also because they share one common agenda with Islam, other than geopolitical domination, which is to erase Hindu civilization from the surface of this earth.
Well,
So the Christian mafia, the conversion mafia, is very actively supporting the Islamic lobbies, global as well as national. And their resolve is, their joint resolve is, let's first deal with Hindus. We'll settle things between us later. So long as Hindus are wiped out, because this is the only surviving civilization, the Indic civilization. And this rankles for the Christians as well as for the Islamists.
for the viewers, I can tell you that the American State Department intervenes. It's not America is not a secular country. They only intervene for Christian rights.
Hmm.
And wherever they cannot do that, they do Islamic rights. A very classical example is Kosovo and Serbia.
Yeah,
And we all know that how the state was divided whimsically on the request of some people, and so many millions of people were killed. Obama, in the Obama's reign, you can say that 19 people, put out statistics, actually 9 million people were approximately killed or maimed or injured in the Islamism countries. So,
hmm.
so there is a state involvement there, and where these issues suddenly, when you showed in your slides, the BBC, the Wikipedia, the CNN, and
Yeah,
all the ultra left wing George Soros funded campuses. George Soros is also an agency toolkit, so
true.
they are also getting involved. I always wonder that the ecosystem that they continue to maintain. In one of our programs we said that even the communism in many countries including India was sponsored by the American and Western agencies.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Which is why Indian colleagues had never gone to study in China, Cuba, or Soviet Union. They always rushed to American universities, Oxford, Cambridge, etc. So they got patronage. It's the high patronage they got from Western so called democracies that gave them special clout in India vis-a-vis all parties. I mean, electorally, they don't count for much, but their nuisance value, both as intellectual warriors as well as what shall I say, sepoys of the conversion mafias of both Islam and Christianity, draws essentially from the fact that they get support from Western universities and all their think tanks and uh, the State Department.
One of my most popular books in USA is called Karma is a Bitch, and
Oh,
in which I mention that how karma acts individually as well as collectively. So it acts on the nations also. We saw an example of France, where France was the origin of all these destructive ideologies like communism, and
true.
in fact, even terrorism was supported a lot by the French politicians. Now,
Mm.
once it has hit the home, now they're trying to desperately come out of it. It's impossible now because it's a long karma of 200 300 years. Now it's going to be difficult for French to control their own cities. Happened with Sweden, happening with Germany. It's going to happen with Turkey too, because Turkey has usurped most of the lands of shamanic cultures, which are Hindus actually. Shamanics are all Hindus.
Mm.
Romani people, the biggest European bloc is Romani people, almost 50 million. They have to live in other countries because the church took their lands away. It's in my book, Gold, Glory, and God. People can read it out. Church took away their land, their religion, their culture. Everything was taken away in the name of colonialism. In Africa, out of 50 countries, 29 countries speak English. They don't speak local languages because they were never documented, not allowed to be spoken.
Yeah.
And we are speaking in the English language because we are speaking to a Western audience in the USA and other countries who are watching it, to just to make you aware that the what they teach you in the universities is not the world. The world has 8 billion people, and the West has only 650 million people. And that too, I'm talking about the race. 58.5% of USA is a white race, and I don't believe in colors, by the way. I'm from India, so I don't believe in colors. I don't believe in white, black, brown, blue. I think everyone is a human, and that is above anything else. The one question which I had for you was, UNHRC, United Nations, is a defunct agency.
Yeah.
UNHRC has supported terrorism all over the world, directly or indirectly or through conspiratorial way.
Yeah.
uh, and the American agencies, USCIRF and the American State Department and various other organizations who have apparently shown friendship to India, to Prime
Mm.
Minister Modi. And Indian Americans love Prime Minister Modi, and I must put it on record there that because of him, many NRIs have got a very favorable view in their own countries in the West. uh, and many of them don't understand Indian politics also. I can say that also very clearly. They don't understand. You are the better judge on that because you live there and you are an active one. And Madhu Kishwarji, I'll tell you one thing about her. Her career is, check out her Wikipedia page, then you'll know who she
No,
is.
no, no, no. Wikipedia page is full of distortions.
Okay.
Please never read Wikipedia to know who I am. In
Okay.
fact, I created my own personal website so that I can put my own CV there and nobody needs to go to Wikipedia. It'll be up soon.
Absolutely.
Because you know
What is your,
Wikipedia has been taken over by
yes,
this leftist commie
even
Islami
even
lobbies.
the Wikipedia founder said don't refer to us.
Yeah, yes.
He said
And
it.
certainly never refer to me.
What is your page, website address?
No, Manushi.in is one website, but
Okay.
my own personal website will be launched in another 10-15 days.
Okay.
And it is mainly because I got tired of people going to Wikipedia in order to get my CV or my life's work. And they have distorted it beyond recognition. So
I
I
will
said,
share
okay,
your page on this video. So in the comments later on, I'll share your page so that people can look at it. But my
thank you.
point was, UNHRC and many of these defunct organizations. Why? So the U.S. congressmen and U.S. senators regularly pass statements on other countries of the world, like calling India as the rape capital. Now I have proved with statistics that the US is at 13th position and India is at 94th position on the same amount. So the rape cap, and Australia and France is a little higher than the US, one position higher than the US. So 12th position. So all the Western countries come under top 20 of the rape. And I'm
Yeah.
excluding the top 10. So where are the feminist organizations in the West who are talking about the real numbers produced by their own agencies? Now, why India is being labeled like that, or China is being labeled like that, or Russia is being labeled like that? In fact, Russia has the lowest rape statistics in the world, and it is very sad to discuss these numbers. And I apologize for many of the viewers who have not seen me speaking like this. But Madhuji was so brave; she inspired me. Today, I am speaking with these numbers. So my question is, why does the Indian agencies do not tackle this problem at the source? Because India is a powerful country and India can do that. What do you say?
No, but I think at one level, yes, India is much better off than many other societies which have been completely subjugated. But that's because Hindu Samaj is still alive, though in a very battered condition. As far as the government is concerned, whether it's our police, whether it's our bureaucracy, whether it's our judiciary, or the political class, they're all really so heavily compromised. In fact, I did a program on whether India is a failed state in that sense, because think of it, Aditya ji, not one single political party in India stands up for Hindu rights. Hindus are discovering to their utter horror that even BJP, who they thought was the premier party claiming to represent Hindu interests, is too busy placating, appeasing, winning over the hearts of the Islamists and the Christian mafia, the conversion mafia. And they don't dare take action against the commie domination of our and subversion of our agencies. Our agencies are very, very badly subverted. And it's important to recognize that if in a Hindu majority country, not one single party stands up to defend Hindu interests, even when we are being mauled, as in the Kathua case, this is typical. Not one party said, at least listen to the people of Jammu. If they're all coming out in their thousands, there must be some reason because Hindus never done that. Nobody heard them. Nobody heard their cries for help or to be heard. It was all in absentia that they were being condemned. And in that sense, the police, the judiciary, I mean, look at the Supreme Court. When the Jammu Bar Association went on strike saying, please get this case investigated by CBI, the Bar Council was sent from Delhi. The Delhi Bar Council members were sent by the Supreme Court to go and communicate a message that if they don't stop their protests, their licenses to practice would be taken away for life. Now, Supreme Court actually issuing blackmail threats to people who are merely asking for CBI probe. Has the Supreme Court ever done that with the Kashmir Bar Association, which has repeatedly passed resolutions in favor of secession to Pakistan? Which have stood valiantly to defend every terrorist, which is why not a single terrorist ever got punished through the judiciary, through the judicial process in JNK. Has the Supreme Court ever bothered about that? No. But they got so outraged at the Bar Association, High Court Bar Association, demanding a mere CBI probe that they threatened their licenses would be taken away. Now, not a single party, including BJP, the Prime Minister's office, could have easily agreed to a CBI probe. CBI comes under the PMO, but it humiliated its own ministers. It made them resign. So, what does that tell you? And the Congress, of course, was very delighted and interestingly blamed the BJP and the Prime Minister for the rape, the RSS and the Hindutvawadis for the rape. So everybody had a merry time demonizing Hindus, and the BJP did not stand up at that time to protect even innocents. All they had to do was get the facts come out. For example, in the Shopian case, Mehbooba Mufti had played a similar game with murder of two women way back, I think in 2009 it was. There too, she said the armed forces had gang raped and killed these women whose bodies were found on the riverbed of Jhelum or someplace, Shopian mein. It turned out, now it's been proven, at that time, Abdullah was smart enough to hand over the case to CBI because he knew Mehbooba Mufti wanted him out as chief minister. And the CBI probe quickly established that the forensic lab tests had been actually tampered with by doctors who were conducting it. These women doctors were caught talking about, their phone calls were tapped, and they were talking about how they'd used their own vaginal smears to replace the vaginal smears of the two allegedly raped women. So she cooked up, even at that time, this fake rape case, but the CBI was able to blast it. And now those two women doctors have been merely relieved from their jobs. They are not being tried for having destroyed the lives of so many armed force personnel who were accused falsely of rape and murder. Yeah, sorry.
So, Madhuji, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing this book. Viewers should get this book and understand how the fake narrative works and how it is acted upon by so many people. So, thank you so much for coming on the show. We'd like to
Aditya, I
hear.
also want to thank you. After you asked for the Kindle edition, I put our office in motion, and the Kindle edition of this book will be out soon because readers in America, Europe, etc., would find it much easier to order a Kindle edition than a hardbound copy.
And for all the viewers, do go to Manushi and her own channel also, and do subscribe and let us know your feedback. Thank you very much, and namaste. I give your day back for many people, and also good night for people in India. Namaste.
Thank you, Aditya ji. Thank you very
Thank,
much for your support to this book.
thank you. Thank you.